I'm Jim Collison, and this is the Wellbeing at Work with CliftonStrengths podcast, recorded on December 2nd, 2021. In this CliftonStrengths podcast, we'll look at the strengths, insight, and action planning items from Appendix 1 and a little bit of Appendix 2 in the Gallup book, Wellbeing at Work, one theme at a time, and today's theme is belief. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in our chat room. There's a link right above me there that'll take you to YouTube. Sign into the chat room that is there. If you have questions after the fact, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jacqueline Robinson is our host today. She works as a Gallup Learning and Development Consultant and was the primary contributor to Appendix 1 in Wellbeing at Work. Jacqueline, always great to be with you. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
We're spending some time digging in today with belief. Yes. Give us the definition.
We think of belief as those folks that have certain core values that are unchanging. Out of these values emerge a defined purpose for their lives. I often think about that as their North Star. So those core values that guide them.
My spouse, number one. So I'm pretty familiar with this. After 32 years, she may sneak into this episode as well. What about how does it relate to you and how does it relate to others?
It's that core value system and purpose they connect with in their life that drives their career path, that drives the friendships they have, the family they connect with, the hobbies they hold for themselves. And so everything is interconnected and aligned with that core value system. So if I think about how it relates to other people, because of the clarity in their values and beliefs, they can really speak to them with passion. And I think that really engages and excites the teams that they're on or the people that they're around, which is why we often think of it as an executing theme, is because of that passion and verve that we hear in their voice.
For me, understanding belief in my marriage relationship was super important because I realized there was a value structure that existed that wouldn't necessarily change very fast. Mm-hmm. Mine changes all the time. Situational ethics, I'm okay with that. And it was a tremendous understanding. I think sometimes and we'll talk about this here just in a second, but I think sometimes in the context of groups, belief can run up against the rocks and just crash their ship on shore because people don't understand that. And so it just gets, I think that's one of those areas where belief people are like, don't you know, I'm always going to feel this way. And, I've thought through this. This is the way, this is what I believe. And it's a strong, unwavering, discipline, focus, like zeroing in on it, right? And so I think oftentimes we'll talk about that here during the group section, but when we think about it from a well-being perspective and thriving versus struggling, how do we see it there?
I think they wake up with purpose and with a sense of verve and excitement for life because they, when they put their feet on the ground in the morning, they know what it is that they're working towards, who they're going to be surrounded with, and all that's so in alignment with their core value system and the purpose that they want to live out in life. And so I feel like it's just, there's that pep in their step. It's like, I'm going, that North Star is shining. It's bright. It's right in front of me. And everyone is on that path. And they feed into my value system too.
Where does it look when it's struggling? Where's it struggling?
When I see people struggle with this theme, it feels like there's some misalignment. It could be personally or professionally or even both. But there's misalignment with what they stand for and what surrounds them. And that can create feelings of sadness or hurt or discontent or frustration. And they don't tend to sit in that place long because, to your point, they have that core value system that is unwavering. But when they see that, it could be really hurtful. It's like, oh, this company is no longer aligned with who I am. Or this person, I don't want to have to let them go, but they're no longer in alignment. Their values don't match up to mine. What else might you add? Just having your wife with this is number one. Have you seen these experiences too?
I have. And I think it's an area where, and I mentioned this a minute ago, in group settings or with teams or family members, where when it's misunderstood, then it can really grind, or it can really, heads can bang, and it's painful. I mean, it's painful to watch. And when someone is, because values are so tied to kind of the inner soul of who we are, I think, as an
Mhm.
individual, it gets very, very personal, you know. And
Yes.
so it's just a struggle there, right? That can really, when they feel like their values are not being heard, or when their values are
Yes.
not being valued. This is where I think in coaches, I think it's really, really important in group and team settings. When you see this belief, this high belief come out, you spend some extra time making sure the team understands that belief. Because I think,
Mhm.
particularly from a well-being standpoint, when that person is not understood or those values are violated in some way, I think it hurts really, really deep and has an effect on well-being. I don't know, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think about this theme too, is what might be best is where can we agree to disagree? Because
Mm,
they might have their own value system on that side, but where do we have a common purpose and mission that we can agree on and move
yeah.
forward with to find some sense of alignment whenever it feels like there's that dichotomy that they're, you know, managing.
Yeah. Where's alignment is a great question, by the way, in this. Like, where do we find the team setting?
Mhm.
Where do we find common alignment in this?
Mhm.
And I think that's just kind of a great place to start. We have examples in Appendix 1 looking at the theme, then by one of the elements of well-being. You picked one to go over today. What do you have for us?
I've got physical well-being.
Oh,
We talk a lot about career well-being with belief, but if we think about physical well-being, we can coach this person to understand how physical and mental health connects to their living mission. So good rest, nutrition, exercise, that allows them to be at their best so that they can continue to make a difference in their families and communities. I think helping tie that in could help inspire or motivate them from the physical well-being
mm.
piece.
I love that because oftentimes we tie it to, and we can, but
Hmm.
community well-being comes up, right? Is with that high belief, and I love just thinking like, no, there are other ways to tie this into the other elements. Is why I
Yes.
would not have picked physical well-being. Thinking like, how does that work? But yeah, I know. I think that's a great,
Hmm.
as we're thinking about well-being, right? The way we take care of ourselves is important, and I think high belief, getting out ahead of that with people to help them like understand like, no, you got to take care of yourself during this time. I think like I'm
Mhm.
finally, now it's taken almost 2 years, but I'm finally getting back to where I was pre-pandemic from a like a physical and emotional well-being standpoint. It's taken me some time. Maybe belief could have pushed me a little bit, or led me a little bit quicker to get there. So
Yes.
I love that. We have four others in there in the appendix. Some great insight by theme into those questions, and so use that as a resource in your coaching. We anything else as we look at appendix 2 in this framework to kind of walk through? Maybe we can
Mhm.
spend a little time with belief walking through that framework.
I agree. So if we're thinking from a manager perspective, whenever I coach people high in belief, one thing that they do exceptionally well is help others recognize how they contribute to the overall goal, to the team goal, to the mission or purpose of the organization, because they lead with that. It's so top of mind thinking about this purpose-driven life. I think that's something they do quite well. And we know in the workplace that teams want to know, how am I contributing to something greater than myself? So they do that very well. If they're on a team, I think where they can bring some, I think where they have some power and edge is connecting other people to the common goal. If others aren't quite sure why they're doing what they're doing and they're saying, what's the outcome we're trying to achieve here? You've got someone with belief that is likely able to verbalize how what they're doing ties into that mission or purpose. And then if we think about it from an individual perspective, um, looking for ways to have that sense of community. So going back to a little bit of the community well-being piece, but how am I connecting with other people that have similar, beliefs as I do, um, or a similar mission, and I can feed that
Mhm.
socially. I'm getting that social energy, but I'm also just connecting within the community and feeling like I'm doing something greater than self.
I think, because I tend to wobble,
Hmm.
it just, with my themes, I can move around and fast moving, quick, changing. I call that sometimes when I'm struggling a wobble, and maybe not a very productive one. a belief adds a great North Star from
Yeah.
as we think about when you're on a team. And I sometimes look for that. Like when I'm wobbling, when
Yes.
things are in chaos, and I'm okay handling the chaos, but I do need something to look to or to travel on. By the way, thank you for your focus in the notes. I skipped ahead and you went right back to where we should be on that. So I was realizing, oh, I took a peek at the chat room. I wobbled a little bit, right? And your focus brought us back. So it's a great example. But I really,
Oh.
even from so for those of you high in belief in just realizing, even as an individual, you're providing stability as we think about those four needs of a follower.
Mhm.
Stability is important. I think this provides some of that stability onto a team, whether you're the manager or you're on the team, or even from an individual. It may be that stability you need in the times of chaos, right? To be able to really kind of nail that down. I don't know. Would you add anything else to that?
I love that. It gives me the visual of an oak tree.
Mm.
They're just so firmly planted, and people just want to go to that person. And their branches might sway in the wind, but they know where they're at. They know why they're there, and it just creates that sense of sturdiness and
Mhm.
stability for people.
Kind of
Um,
come back to the flagpole. Like it's always
yes,
come back to it. Like that's where this is, or
yes,
the rallying point. When I was in the military, we'd always have a rally
that's an
point.
even
Like,
better
hey, in midst of
visual.
chaos, we're determining in advance we're going to rally here, and that may be a good opportunity for belief to say I can be your rallying point. Like I'm not going to
Hmm.
waver. You know.
For
So
sure.
um, in Appendix 2, there's a framework. Now it's time for the framework. There's a framework as we look through these elements of well-being. There's some great questions in that section about asking yourself and asking team members, and then take action. Jacqueline, walk us through that section now.
So for that one, as we think about belief here, I think a good question that they could ask themselves is, how can I apply my passions and interests to organizations in my community? From a team member perspective, maybe they ask the team members, what do you feel passionate about in your communities? We talk so much about the value system and the mission of those high in belief. One area of opportunity for them is also to engage with others on what they believe in and what their values are. So I think asking that question, what do you feel passionate about in your communities, is a really good bridge. It can create that common ground and common connection with another person just in hearing what their mission is, even if it's different. But it opens up the door for just hearing about other people and learning about what gives them energy from a values and systems perspective. And then last but not least, taking action. I think about getting to know each other's hobbies and interests. They can connect on that. And when they find that shared interest in community or in the workplace, they can look for ways to pursue that
Mm,
interest or maybe
mm,
volunteer their time in
mm.
that area where they have some common ground.
I love these ideas of asking questions, and there's plenty more questions there for you along these lines. And I love, in my move to be more relational and less woo during the pandemic, I'd love to ask some questions about asking people, how do you think about this? And just listen,
Mhm.
right? It's not, that takes work on my side, just to be honest. It takes some work not to be the talker, but to be the listener, right? We had Kathy DeWeese on a LinkedIn Live the other day. She talked about the three phases of listening, right?
Yes.
And I'm 99% of the time I'm listening to respond, right? It just is what it is. But it has been with high belief. I think for me, I'd want to take it when I know this about someone to be able to kind of say, tell me more about that belief,
Mhm.
right? Tell me more about the values kind of behind that. And I think those of you who have high belief have an opportunity to help us that don't by asking great questions around this as well. Jacqueline, anything else you
Mhm.
want to add before I close it?
No, I love that. I like the way you just ended it too. We can look towards people with high belief to help us think about our own North Star. They could ask some really good questions that help us think about our own value system and our own mission or purpose in life, and can help us just ensure that we're on that
Mm,
path for ourselves,
yeah.
especially if we're in that funky feeling of having some well-being that feels a bit off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love the fact that we get an opportunity to openly talk about well-being. Not a new concept. The very first Five Elements book came out 10 years ago, but great now that we get this opportunity to do this. And Jacqueline, thanks for joining me on this webcast today. With that, we'll remind everyone, take full advantage of all the resources we do have available now in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths, hit the resources tab, and you can search right there for coaching, master coaching, or become a Gallup certified strengths coach. Send us an email. We can help you out with that. coaching@gallup.com. Stay up to date with all the webcasts that are going. We're recording this in 2021, but there'll be plenty coming out in 2022. If you want to join us live, and live is fun because you have a post show. We're going to do that here in just a second. Gallup.eventbrite.com. Join us on any social platform just by searching Clifton Strengths. And don't forget to subscribe. Riley is always on me about this. Tell them to subscribe. So here, subscribe to the live channel, any channel that you happen to be on. Get subscribed so you never miss an episode. If you found us helpful, we'd ask that you'd share it, and want to thank you for joining us today. If you're listening live, stay around for some post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.